Yeah, ready to jump into our podcast now after like 30 minutes of recording.
Let's do it.
After 10 minutes of waiting on Henry for 5 minutes.
Right.
Hey, my bad.
Okay.
uh, so we already got the intro, so we don't have to intro.
No, we ain't got no intro yet.
Oh, okay. So we about the intro.
Yeah.
Chris, you intro?
Yep. All right, hold on. Let me just trying to get my page right real quick with these statistics.
Gosh, his hands.
Sorry.
Hey,
Why your hands so dry?
hey, they not. I'm a man. I've worked with my hands. Dog. Sorry.
There's no excuse for them boys to be sounding like some Adidas breakaway pants.
Right.
Well, man, this
We
mic,
gonna
this mic real sensitive.
Oh, okay. That's what it is.
Yeah, maybe I gotta turn the feed in down or something. How you do that?
All right,
Yo,
Chris.
what's up?
Sorry.
Yo, what's up? Welcome to another edition of the Patriarch Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Collins, joined by my brothers.
your hands. I can still hear your hand.
All right, hold up.
Nah, that's the intro. We're gonna turn. No,
No,
that's the intro. We're gonna keep
I'm
that.
saying, hold up. Nope.
Nah, ain't no black
I'm
no
fixing
take
it
back.
right now. It's
Mm-mm.
too.
Why your hands sound like sandpaper? You got that 180 grit.
All right, can you still? I turned my mic down. Can you hear me still real good?
Not as good as before, but let me hear your hands. I'm sorry.
Oh, that was the intro. Welcome to the
Oh, man.
Patriarch. We got H, Mark, and Chris in his ashy hands.
Hard working hands. Let's get that right, man. Put some respect on the hard working hands, bro.
You work with kids. They ain't got nothing to do with your hands.
Nah.
Hey, Chris, turn your mic back up. Seriously.
Okay.
Oh man.
Well, how y'all doing, fellas? What's up? It's been a minute since we been on the pod together.
Recording
What's
at
going on?
least. Man, life
Yeah,
happens,
recording.
man. You know. Unlike you working with kids, I actually been using my hands in real life. You know, I've been remodeling my lady's bathroom. She had one of them old school Detroit bathrooms with the pink tile.
Mm.
Had like 2.5 inches of cement and barbed wire fencing in the inside.
Barbed wire.
Man, it was a mess, man. I've been working on that now for like 2 weeks, but it's finally done. Got some nice subway tile in there, built a little niche. Uh, it's looking all nice and professional. I still got about 2 or 3 more days of work till I'm wrapping that up. That's been my life night and day for the last few weeks.
That's what's up, man. You gotta take care of home.
Absolutely.
Doing a good job. I'm sure she appreciate that, right?
Yeah. So what you been up to, H?
H,
Man,
what's up, man?
sometimes women just be impatient, so you don't know
I
what they
feel
be
you.
appreciating.
I feel you. H, what's going on, man?
Chilling, man. Living the dad life. Charlie just started crawling last week.
Hey.
So
Ooh, hey.
yeah. Now things are getting for real. Um, but no, it's been cool. We've been trying to get in, some camping trips and celebrating holidays and all of that. But other than that, keeping it chill. Mark, I did see that you posted a video of you blocking your son, which is
First off,
rude.
I wasn't blocking.
You were blocking.
I
You
wasn't.
was,
All right. So here's
my
what
man's
happened.
was clean. Yeah, go ahead. You explain what happened.
Let me tell
Out
him
on
what
the
happened.
chain.
Dog had on this iced out chain. But listen, so my lady lives down in like outskirts of Detroit area. And so I've been down there working on our bathroom. So when I go down there, I take the kids. Well, it's a bunch of kids that live right next door. And it's a bunch of them that's around my kids' age. So it happens to be this other little mixed girl. My kids are biracial. It's this other little mixed girl, has this long curly hair. She's a very cute little girl, but my son fell in love. The boy is like googly eyed.
Sprung.
He's 9 years old. He's like, hey, I gotta go out here and I gotta play with Autumn. That's her name. The little girl comes over to my lady's house every single day now looking for the kids. Like, you don't even see, like, she just ring the doorbell. And so they have Ring. She has their little Ring doorbell. And so she sees it. She's like, Christian's not here. She's like, and then she goes and runs back next door. And so, it's one of those things where they just, as soon as they go over there, they got to play. And so he came in the house. He was like really frantic, right? Like, dad, I gotta get my phone. I left it in the car. I'm like, what do you need your phone for, man? And he was like, I gotta get Autumn's phone number. I'm like, why you need her phone number? He was like, we tried to put it in Tristan's phone. It's not saving. I gotta get it so I can put it in her phone. And he had like this like elaborate scheme on how and why he needed to get her number. He was like, then we're gonna play music. I'm like, what you need to play music for? He was like, I need to play her a song. I'm like, play her a song? He was like, yes, I need to play her a song. And then I'm going to get her number. I'm going to play her this song. And then we're going to go out there and we're going to jump on the trampoline while I'm playing her this song. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, first off,
I thought through, man.
I was like, which one is Autumn? Why are you out of breath? And what song you gonna play for? He was like, I don't know. I'm just gonna play a song. And I'm like, all right. Like, so then I grabbed my phone, I started recording, and he got so upset. He got like teary-eyed. I was like, wait, so why do you need her number? He was like, I just need her number. And so it's funny because for the first, well, not the first time, but like I see myself in my son, because the way, like, when I get excited, my voice goes high. His voice does the same thing. And it's funny now because his voice is also starting to drop and get deeper. He doesn't have like the little kid voice anymore. And so he was like, I just need her phone number. And so he was just exhausted with me. And I gave him a hard time. But the crazier, even so, we went and looked in the car. The phone wasn't even in there, right? He got so excited to go see this little girl when we got there that he actually accidentally threw his phone away. And so we had to go dig through the trash to get his phone because he threw his phone away.
Hey, but my man's hat on.
Oh,
he had on his fit was immaculate.
Yo, he put on his favorite Fortnite shirt. He had on his iced out chain, and he put on his favorite shoes and everything. Like, dog was ready to go impress old girl.
But my favorite part about the video was, I don't even want her number, Dad. I delete it. It's for Tristan. It's for Tristan. I was like, I'm doing her. It's not for me. I delete it. I don't need it.
Yo, he was pressed. And what he didn't realize too is that, like, my kids have iPhones because I have iPhone. And so the little girl had an Android. And so the reason why the number wasn't working in Tristan's phone, because he kept trying to FaceTime her. And, my kids, they don't believe in like regular calling. It's always FaceTime. Always FaceTime. I don't think they've ever just called me like my regular number. They've always FaceTime me.
Man, that's funny, man.
But
shouts out to Christian, man. So cute, man. That was a cute story, man. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. No, man, I'm hurt. I'm for real like a whole parent. Like, that was that realization where I got to deal with like little girls now.
You about to have some teenagers, man.
Man, yeah. Yeah, I ain't excited for that phase.
Man, that's what's up, though.
What about you, Collins?
Myself, man, I just been kind of trying to do some projects around the house, too. Working with my hands like I do when I do what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And, yeah, so that's pretty much what I've been doing, man, is and spending time with the kids, of course. But they've been, like, busy. They got, like, their own schedule. Like, my kids are 6 and 4 and about to be 2. They got their own schedules and weekend agendas, man. They was at a party on Sunday. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'm gonna just do some more work here at home. Then y'all go have fun. But yeah, man, they be busy.
Your feelings a little hurt, Chris. They got to pencil you in.
I thought we was gonna have a little campfire in the backyard, stuff like that. But they had other plans, so it's all good. I was a little hurt.
I get it, man. I get it.
But yeah, man, it's been cool though, man. Missed you fellas. It's been a minute.
Yeah,
Good to be
man.
on live at least, doing our thing.
Yeah. So okay. So speaking of missing stuff and things not quite being right, today's topic we're gonna jump into talking about like men's mental health, right? Um,
Yes.
that's a personal, near dear to my heart subject. I'm a huge advocate for men's right, fathers' right, and men's mental health. I discuss it pretty much every day. Um, and so, Chris, I know you got some stats. Like, what's the stats on like men's mental health?
Definitely. Yo, so I didn't even know, but apparently June was Men's Health Month. Didn't know it was a thing, but anyway.
Nah, I ain't know either.
So I'm sure a lot of other people didn't know either.
Right.
But just to give people a little bit of insight, if you're not aware, um, men make up roughly 150 million uh, people in our population, and mental health and depression affects males. About 6 million people are affected by depression per year. 6 million males. So that's about 1 in 5 adults experience a mental health problem each year. Some other stats, man. Like I said, over about 6 million men suffer from depression. Um, Male depression often goes undiagnosed, right? We can probably think of a few instances that occurs in, um, but men are more likely to report like fatigue, irritability, loss of interest in work or hobbies, things like that. But some other things like anxiety, bipolar disorder, um, psychosis, and schizophrenia, things probably a lot of mainstream public don't really fully understand, even till this day, right? And also eating disorders. I mean, you people probably commonly think of those like eating disorders associated with women, right? But I mean, it's just as prevalent in men as well.
Yeah, I thought for me that was the most alarming. The whole eating disorder. Uh, and I want us to go back to the first one, right? Because I think that's important, and I think that's a great way to kick off the conversation, where it says male depression often goes undiagnosed.
Facts.
Why do we think that is, fellas?
First off, we don't go to the doctor enough to get diagnosed. And
Yeah,
secondly, it, I think we're just so used to having to be strong that we hide and mask our depression
that's very
so
true.
much that it's not even, we don't even think of it as depression. We're like, oh, we just in a slump.
Yeah,
I think, like, for me, just speaking from my experience, right? I think it's the conditioning within our community, right? Like, we are conditioned within our households that, like, as a man, like you said, Mark, like, we supposed to be strong, right? So we're not allowed to express our feelings of sadness or, worthlessness or whatever it is, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're not encouraged to express our feelings or be expressive of our feelings. And so when that's not a thing that we can express, just being expressive in general, communicating how we feel, then we internalize all that, right? And then so I think from my experience again, like, I think that's why, like, we don't even realize we feel in depression because we've been so conditioned on you need to internalize those feelings because you can't express them to anybody.
Right.
You need to handle that, suck it up, and keep it going. So then when we become adults, that manifests. And then now we think the only way we can handle tough situations is we need to internalize it and we need to handle it on our own. And so we don't even seek out the resources to even get diagnosed or get some sort of rehabilitation or assistance in what we're feeling.
And not only that, but not seeking resources. A lot of men just don't know where to even begin to look for those resources, and it's not readily available for us. And then not only, and then to even go further, we don't have enough safe spaces, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we can call on different people and have those honest discussions about stuff like that to cater to our mental health and things of that nature, and talk about those moments where we might be feeling sad or feeling worthless and things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean that's huge, fellas. I think there's always been just really such a stigma attached to just feeling like you're inadequate, right? Or uh, you're reaching out for help even, and not really knowing where to turn. So I mean, and then it comes in just so many different kinds of ways. I mean, you think about just some of the experiences that people go through as far as like enlisting in armed services and having to face those kinds of challenges. Uh, being in prison or incarcerated, and then having to come back and re-engage with society, and those kinds of expectations. From your job, if you're in kind of a high stress kind of occupation, or just man living in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Like people don't commonly, I think, associate those kinds of things with mental health. But even that can, extreme poverty or homelessness and all those kinds of things are really, I don't know if they're symptoms of mental health issues, but
They are.
yeah. So certainly, they're there. So just being aware of some of those things and how we can address them, I think is a starting point.
And that's a huge misconception that you pointed out, that like poverty, being growing up in poverty and growing up with certain things in your life, um like stuff we like to call hood traumas, you know those are real mental health issues. Growing up in poverty, you have like PTSD, but we just like to call it hood trauma. But like, we have safety issues where, you know, fireworks can be traumatic for Black
Mm.
people because, not only for war vets, but for Black people, because sometimes we just don't know. If you grew up in the hood, you don't know if it's a gunshot or a firework. And so
Man.
you got this fight or flight that kicks in. That's a PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
It is, man. And there's one thing that kind of points to this, and I believe her name is Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, where she really addresses ACEs, which are it's an acronym for Adverse Childhood Experiences, and the definition of it is like if say if there's your home life is constantly presenting you challenges. Maybe you've had a situation where you had some sexual violent act occur against you as a child, or um, you might have seen somebody be arrested and go to jail, or witness some kind of violent act or something like that. But a prolonged or having four or more of those is considered where you're more likely to kind of continue that same kind of behavior as you become an adult. Um, so I think all that kind of research is really interesting, and how you think about even just poverty,
Hmm.
um, and what that can really do to generations, right? I mean, we see
Mm-hmm.
it now with black folks, right?
Hmm.
And all the disenfranchisement and wrongs that have occurred throughout our history and heritage. So, and I think just being aware of all of these different kinds of challenges is a starting point.
So, okay, so pointing the finger at ourselves, when do you think was the first time you really checked on like your mental health? When was that first like recognition, like I'm going through depression or I have anxiety or something of that nature?
Uh, I guess I'll speak to it. And I think I didn't realize it until like recently, right? In adulthood, because at the time I didn't have a name for it. I didn't define it, right? Because like depression is not something that I felt that I would get or I could be capable of getting. So I went through I know I went through deep depression when like I lost my brother, right? Like I like disconnected from everybody. I was really like into church. I like disconnected from all of that.
Yeah.
And it like changed me like completely, right? Like, people reaching out and they're like, I want to help you or I want to, give me sympathy and I'm looking at like all of this the responses that I'm getting from the people and I'm like, is that like are you really here for me, right? Like so I'm questioning their motives and things like that. So that was like for me that was like my first time. But then I
Hmm.
also like where I realized it was, and even as an adult, like it like took me time to like come to terms like this is a form of depression was after Charlie was born, which I think a lot of men don't talk about, right? Like because I was worried about Pauline going through postpartum depression, because that's a thing that we know that women go through. But after Charlie was born, like I felt emotions that I couldn't explain, where I felt like I'm not contributing uh because of the bond that her and Pauline has. Uh my normal is different now
Yeah.
because of this. And so like I felt like I was losing anytime I feel like I'm losing my identity, then I like retract and I go, like I get reclusive, right? And I think me
Mm,
that behavior is a sign of, depression for me.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think so. I can't pinpoint the exact time, but I can like look at different situations that have occurred, and then in hindsight, be like, oh yeah, man, I was probably really depressed right there. um, but man, like really, one of the times where I kind of just noticed it was when I was in college, and it kind of just stopped running track at the college I was at, and this was after like a year and not having really like the same amount of success as I did in high school with it,
Hmm.
and just really feeling not enough, or yeah, not enough. And um, so I kind of went through a little period there where I just didn't want to do anything. Um, Classes was I probably skipped a few classes until I felt better or more myself. But and that was just it. It just kind of went away or whatever. And I moved on. But um, I think we have these different experiences, and like really recently, maybe last month or a few months ago, like, I woke up one day and told my wife like, man, I think I'm depressed. It was
Yeah.
like just after like a couple weeks of like, feeling in my body, like that I
Yeah.
was stressed when I'm at work or whatever, or really to the outside where their perception is probably like I'm really like even killed. I mean, even to you guys, like, I look like I probably have my emotions in check a lot. I don't go over too much or under too low. Um, I'm just a pretty relaxed person. That's my demeanor. And so, but being able to like feel that in my body was just like, man, I don't know what's going on, but I don't feel like myself. And being able to identify that and talk to my partner about how that feels or how I was feeling helped her to see like, okay, maybe I can help in these different ways, and she's here to support me and those kinds of things. So that felt good to know, and then being able to deal with it and move on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge having somebody to be your crutch and talk to about that. I think my first sign was actually around the same time as you. H was like around the time when like your brother died, but but it was more so what my life was at that time. You know, I remember that moment because I had like just started driving like my parents' car. It was that '89 Buick LeSabre that didn't have a power steering.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And you know what I'm saying? That's you didn't have power steering, you have muscles trying to turn quarters in them joints. But just to even further that, like at that point, man, we didn't have I think we didn't have like water at the house. That was like that point in time when like I was coming over your crib to shower.
Mm-hmm.
And I was falling out with my dad because he was my parents, they struggled with drug addiction my
Mm-hmm.
whole life. And so like they were like borrowing money from dealers and like saying it was like for me. And there was a lot of stuff that transpired between like those transactions between me and those dealers where we got into it that I don't even think about, where I had to beat up some people
Mm-hmm.
type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Where they tried me. And so I think that was my first time ever realizing like I was depressed because I honestly didn't feel like my life was worth it. Like I didn't even want to be here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so um shit, I'm getting emotional. So I remember like when your brother died, it was just like I don't want to be here, but we just lost, and I've always, and it's weird ever calling you like my friend because I don't think I don't think I've ever, said to people like this is my boy Henry is always just like my brother. So I
Mm-hmm.
felt like at that moment I was like, dang, we just lost our little brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what saved me was just like, was like thinking about you. Like, we just lost our little brother. If I leave this earth, who's going to be there for him?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at that point, Mrs. Weaver gave me like this book about grief. And that was the first time I had ever even seen like a therapist, was like sitting on her couch, literally just talking to her and unpacking everything that was like on my shoulders. And that was just weighing me down. And that's when the first time I even understood what depression was. And I think that kind of triggered me because I mean, even when I was younger, I wanted to be a psychologist. And so that's what really, you know, got the ball rolling with me, like being intrigued by mental health and specifically like men's mental health. And that helped me understood like my parents and my dad. Like I'm pretty sure my dad would have been diagnosed with clinical depression.
Mm-hmm.
Like it makes absolute perfect sense. Clinical depression. He definitely had anxiety, and he struggled from PTSD just from the life he lived.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with the lifestyle he had before he struggled with addictions, and so and I think from there I've learned to talk about my emotions and talk about my feelings, and to not bottle stuff in as much. You still have your moments where you feel alone, you don't want to talk to somebody, or you don't feel like even sharing a safe space with someone.
Mm-hmm.
But you push through, you keep going, and all that stuff.
And yeah, that's I we recently had a classmate from college, man, that died, and it seemed like it was by suicide, and
Hmm.
so I think just like some of the, it's hard to see because I mean, like you said, like it's just kind of hard to see, especially with people kind of going on with their day to day lives or whatever, and those are so like how do you see those signs?
Yeah.
It's difficult, right? Some of the factors that are listed here, and this information can be found on um, Mental Health America, uh, MHAnational.org. Um, but just some of the risk factors, I think a big one and that not a lot of people maybe even think about sometimes, is that social isolation
Mm-hmm.
and not really being able to interact with people, or feeling like, again, just maybe you don't have can't really identify or connect with people. Um, I think that's probably one of the biggest ones. But substance abuse, unemployment, um, military related trauma we talked about, like PTSD. Um, what's interesting is that genetic predisposition, um, other kinds of mood disorders, those things kind of put individuals at a higher risk for suicide. And um, what else is interesting is this, that I think well, it says here like 4 times as many men as women uh, are more likely to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And that that's like mind blowing, right? um, but yeah, I think whatever those issues are, um, you got to have some kind of support.
Absolutely, it's worth having somebody who you can
Yeah.
call in those moments, or even learning and what's your like triggers and identifiers, right?
Hmm.
So like I know when I'm falling into that, where like you said, self isolation, or the feeling of burnout. That's how I know where I just don't want to complete work. It was like I got a long list of things that I need to do, but it's not getting done. Where I procrastinate, that's how I know when I'm feeling, you know, depressed or some anxiety might be going on. Where, we're taught. I was raised as a hustler, so it was like you got to work, 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 and work.
Hmm.
And really, just up into these last few years, I realized, man, I've worked my entire 20s away, and I just overworked myself. And I put myself into these depressive moods, these depressive moments, because I never enjoyed life.
Mm.
And I would just, instead of dealing with myself and dealing with my emotions, I would just work them away.
Hmm.
I think that's so that delves into like how do we cope, right? How do we cope
Yeah.
with the stress or whatever you have going on, right? And I think for me it starts with the awareness of what the thing is, right? Like again, like we don't know depression, and I'll just say me, right? I don't know depression because my idea of depression is is like I'm over here and depression is way over here. There is no in between for me, right? So it's like
Hmm.
you're either crying all the time or you're good. But
Yeah.
there's this gray area, this middle ground of like these are symptoms that you could be experiencing, and then they are different degrees of depression that you could be experiencing.
Yeah.
But if you're not aware of that, then one, you can't identify that. Two, you can't educate yourself on how to deal with that. Because like a big thing for me, when you were talking about my brother, right? Like a big thing for me, it was that I was not allowing myself to go through the grieving process. And
Mm-hmm.
so me not allowing myself to go through that grieving process caused like all those symptoms of depression to get even worse. But once I allowed myself, once I was educated on the grieving process, and I was like, oh, I'm in denial. Oh, I'm at this stage. Oh, I'm here, and allowed myself to like fully go through that gambit,
Hmm.
then all the other experiences I had with death in family, right? Like it became easier to deal with because now I know there's a process that I'm supposed to go through to cope with this all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to hear like how are you all how do you cope with those feelings of depression or whatever you want to define it as?
Mine has changed a little bit, like as I gotten older, right? Because I don't have the same freedom and luxuries as I did in my early 20s, especially now with being a father. Like my coping is I love to exercise and clear my mind and create healthy habits. Before early in the fatherhood, I would just eat.
Mm,
I would eat my stress, eat my depression away. And at one point, I think I got up to like 245. I went from like 185 to 245 in like a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was miserable. I couldn't do anything. I had kids, I had a house to take care of. And I just went into a sunken place. And so I had gained a lot of weight. But once I found my love for working out again and doing martial arts, and even like having my creative outlets are a huge help for me, with photography and graphic design and all that stuff. Like having my creative outlets and exercise is a huge coping mechanism for me. And just being honest with myself and having honest conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and just sorting through my issues. And occasionally, if I got to call somebody to, have a venting session, I'll do
Yeah.
that as well. But you also got to throw in a little bit of chocolate. I still got to snack a little bit, right? I got to have my unhealthy chocolates.
Yeah. Man, that's what's up, man. Mark, man, it's so interesting. I was looking at just strategies that people can use to cope and deal with stress, and you really touched on a lot of those things. One being valuing yourself, like making time for hobbies, your favorite projects, things like that. The next was taking care of your body, and that's sleeping,
Yeah, yeah.
eating, eating right or better, eating nutritious meals, drinking water, um, exercise. I mean, those things are like honestly really proven to help lower, um, you know, improve your mood
Mm-hmm.
and decrease anxiety and those kinds of things. You talked about, um, uh, I think you talked about just surrounding yourself with like good people,
Mm-hmm.
um, and getting help when you need it. Like you mentioned, calling somebody when you need to vent. Um, you know, one thing that I think has helped me a lot recently is just being able to take a minute and breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just 5 or 6 deep breaths over a minute. You know what I mean? Different points throughout the day. Um, Mindfulness is kind of a bigger thing that's kind of being more popularized right now. Uh, but meditation, those kinds of things, prayer, whatever consider that to be, those are still good ways to help you cope and really kind of be self-reflective. But me personally, and I love to try to make time to do like hobbies, things I like fishing. Um, Sometimes I just go out to take a drive,
Man, one of my
or
favorite things.
mm-hmm.
get out, take a walk, enjoy some sun, maybe even enjoy some rain sometimes. Um, and really just just being able to be generous to myself. Some ways also include like volunteering. Sometimes, I have never known a a bad thing to come from volunteering your time to something that you found worthy of helping others. I've always felt better after.
Yeah, same.
And breaking up the monotony,
Mm-hmm.
do something different, you know. Those are things that I think can just again begin to help.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, H, um, being able to connect those emotions to language and
Mhm.
process out loud
Mhm.
or journal,
Mhm.
um, get that stuff out,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, those are just some. I don't journal, but sometimes I might write a word or two.
Mhm.
Or one thing I found at work, man, just write that email. Don't put no sender to who you want to send it to. Don't do that
Mhm.
yet. But
That's
write
good
that
advice.
email, then delete it.
Yeah. Say the
Don't
words.
don't accidentally hit send.
Right.
But yeah, write that and delete it.
That's funny you
or,
said that
or
because I
or
was
send
looking
it
at
or
my
send it
drafts.
to send it to your other email. Everybody
Mhm.
got like a uh Freak Daddy 96 Hotmail address,
Freak
something
Daddy
like that.
96.
I ain't got
Yeah,
none of
I
those.
I
might
know
have to
Mark
get me
got
one
one.
of them.
Mark got that one. But
I plead
yeah,
the
man,
fifth.
that's yeah, right. What about you, Henry?
Man, for me, so like I said, right? Like the moments that I feel like I'm sinking into depression is when I feel like I'm losing control of my identity. And I think that's like been like a thing for me, like throughout life is like the moment I feel like I lose control of who I am or who I'm supposed to be or I want to be, uh then I start I start getting some of those symptoms of depression. And so uh I have given myself permission to be selfish, right? And
Mm.
selfish in making sure that I am taking care of me and figuring out who I am, right? Like, cause you hear people say, like, I need to find myself, right?
Hmm.
Basically, you saying you're depressed, like you don't like the person who you have become, or you don't know your true identity, and I don't think you can progress as a human, right? Unless you truly know who you are. And for me, figuring out and what's the word? Embracing my faults, right? Like as I get
Hmm.
older, I start realizing that look, who I am is who I am. Like I ain't got no hair on my head, right? I got these faults.
And you wearing a girl hat.
I'm wearing a girl hat. Like whatever it is, like I'm going to embrace that to the fullest if it makes me happy, if it makes me feel confident in who I am, regardless of what anybody says, right? And I think sometimes, like for me myself, I need a social media cleanse, right? Because looking at all these superficial things on social media, like you get in that like I want to be in that lane. Or why is
Mm-hmm.
that not me? Or why can't I have those things? Why are they living this life? Uh and for me, I need to like pull away from some of that and again figure out who I am. So that like I am confident in my identity. And then a thing that I really want to work on, that I'm not good at, I'm garbage at, is I don't express my emotion. Like I can write I can write some stuff real but I hide behind the metaphors, right? Like in poetry, I can express myself, but I hide behind the metaphors. Uh, and so I have been really looking into, or at least contemplating, going to get therapy, just to have an unbiased person listen to all the things that I have bottled up. Like I just want to just express it all and not have judgment and just say the stuff, right? Um, and I think once I do that, I think I'll unpack a lot of things that I've not realized.
You should, man. I'm actually interviewing people now to figure out like who I feel would like work best with me
Mm,
Hmm.
and like finding like a new therapist. Like I reached out to actually like two people today. I think I do have someone who I will choose. But you spoke on something that's super powerful that a lot of men don't even have the opportunity to embrace because they haven't searched and discovered is which is like their identity. And we like you said earlier, we talk so much about women um changing and within motherhood, but we change too as men and as fathers. Our identities change, and when our identities change, um we turn into other people. It's a popular TikTok video going out right now where it's talk about like what's the flip of a light switch thing that happened to you.
Mm,
And this guy said, I went to therapy, and he was telling his therapist that he's good at a lot of things and he's trying to figure out how to be great. He's a good husband. He's a good worker. He's a good father. He's a good friend. He wants to know how he can be great at them. And he said that his therapist said that um uh husband is something you are to your wife, father is something you are to your kids, an employee is something you are to your employer, a father is something you are to your kids or whatever. And he said, but what are you to you?
mm-hmm,
Mhm.
mm-hmm.
Your identity is in what your identity lies within what you are to other people, but what are you to you? And he didn't know.
Mm.
And a lot of people never think about what they are to themselves.
To be honest, like I guarantee if we ask anybody, like, who are you to you? No, like
Mm-hmm.
people would struggle with that because it's true,
Yeah.
right? Like we get
Yeah.
so wrapped up into, think about it this way, right? Like if we were just meeting, the first question after we introduce each other is like, what do you do? Right? We talking about our
Yeah.
job.
Right.
Like,
Occupation.
Yeah.
yeah, like what do you do? Like that's how we're defining ourselves. It's not like who
Mm-hmm.
are you? We're not asking who are you. We're like, what do you do for a living? Like that is the first thing defining you.
Yeah.
Or I'm a father. That's the second thing or maybe the first, depending on
Yeah.
your priorities, right? Like so, we don't, as not even just as men, like even as as women as well, because I notice these things with my wife. Like she gets so wrapped up in her roles that she forgets who she is. And I've been trying to encourage her, like, look, babe, you got to have your identity. I need to
Mm-hmm.
have my identity, because if we lose sight of that, then we lose sight of why we fell in love with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. Like you got to have your identity. Like go hang with the girls, go wild out, like figure out who you are, and then come back to me, and then we can share our different identities, because that's what
Yeah.
attracted us to each other in the first place.
Man, that's deep, H, man. Me and my wife had the same conversation. Like, you just kind of hit them rough patches or whatever. But, um, at one point I was just like, we both gotta, cause she works from home, and so she spends a lot of her time here at home. I'm like, well, you gotta figure out connect back to what interests you and your hobbies and stuff. And so she's been kind of on this journey the last 9, 6 months or whatever, and figuring that out. And I just want to be able to support her in doing that. um, I think for me the same thing, man, is who am I at the end of the day
Mm.
gonna be beside, I mean, obviously, a father and those kinds of things too, but beyond that, because our kids are only gonna be in our lives for a certain period of time,
Yeah.
right? Until they're on their own and living their own lives too. And we just, here existing again. And
Mm-hmm.
so, keeping connections with what interests us, if that's going to hang with the fellas for whatever, hooping or doing whatever it is. I think that's important, man, and that again, that social interaction and connection with other people, to continue to strengthen that.
Yeah. I remember my first time questioning my identity. It was right when I turned 30. And I just remember like being ready to turn 30 and was just like, I think I was like divorced for like 2 years, 2 or 3 years at that point. Um, yeah, maybe like 2 years. And I was just questioning everything. Like, who am I now? Like, I'm out of a marriage. I had just got like a promotion at my job, but I was just like, who am I? And I couldn't figure out who I was, but I knew who I wanted to be.
Hmm.
And I remember that's when I started like working out again heavy. That's when you were personal training. I was coming down there working out with you,
Mm-hmm.
and I was reinventing myself at that time, hanging out with you and Lee a lot heavy. That's all around that time, right when I turned 30. And even, I mean, 5 years later, I'm still defining who I am and still rediscovering myself and getting so much better at it. Um, just because when I turned 30, I refused to do anything that I didn't love.
Mm-hmm.
And I, and it's crazy telling people this story because they can't understand it. They're like, well, how did you do this? I'm like, I just did it. I'm like, I've already failed a lot in life. I've already had setbacks. I've already lived my life scared.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it anymore. And they were like, so, I went and I just joined the film industry and I started taking gigs in the film industry. And they're like, well, you didn't have anything lined up. You didn't have any money saved. Like, no, man, I just did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah,
just chased the dream.
I think that's incredibly brave, man, and like I really, commend people and being willing to just make that leap, that change in mindset, and make that leap to the unknown. So, man, I really
Thank you.
that's a great perspective to have. I feel like the same in some respect. With I don't think I've had like a I've had like I haven't had a bad day, right? And like I don't look at things like that. I probably had some bad moments or some rough
Mm-hmm.
moments that maybe lasted a couple minutes, but at the end of the day, like man, it's still so much more to life
Yeah.
and then this, that, and the third. And so, man, that's a great perspective to have, man. So much respect to you.
Thank you. Oh, I've had some bad days though. I've had some bad days, some rough moments, some rough weeks. But and I can't tell you how many times I called Henry and was like, man, I give up.
But you
and
know, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, what like helps me get out of the bad days, right? Or I don't have bad days, right? Like Chris said, like I have bad moments, right? Especially now that I'm older and I've realized that like it's all perspective, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you can milk that bad moment and turn it into an entire bad day. But honestly, it's that bad moment. And usually I have those things where it's like I am trying to control something that is not in my control, right? And I feel like a lot of us do that. Like we try to control things that are not in our control. Once you realize that, like, it's not really in my control, I can only control the things that I can control, then that helps with the stress. That helps with the worry and the bad days. Cause it's like, you know what? I did what I could do in my control, but I can't control those things. But I did want to
Yeah.
touch on something else you said, Mark, about for me, I think it's important to have like when we talk about like having a support system, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important for me personally to have like you all, right? Our tight group of people that like I have grown up with because I think we wear so many hats and we put on so many different faces in the different groups that we are to like fit in, right? That like
Mm-hmm.
you guys know who I am from the core. And so like when I hang with you all, like I am my most authentic self. And I feel like y'all call me out when I'm not being my authentic self. So for me, helping me get back to my identity when I'm feeling like I'm lost is that time. Even if it's not like me expressing that, like, look, I'm going through depression. It's more just like, look, I just need y'all here to remind me of who I am.
Yeah, I think I think that's deep too, and I kind of been on this quest too the last year about why does my work self have to be different from my
Yo,
lives, and like why can't those two be one and the same?
preach, preacher.
And instead of looking at them differently, I so yeah, man, I those two
So
should be you gotta be yourself.
that's
Gotta be
very
yourself,
true. And
and I think yeah, I
go
was
ahead,
just saying,
Chris.
man, I want to just rap, man. I think I want to show up and be me. That's how that's the best way I could put my stamp on what it is that I do by being me and being able to connect with people and being able to really have the impact that I want to have at work and through work. Because to me, I feel like I'm really just serving, and that's one of the things I think I do. That's my superpower. Um, but like I remember being at a little lunch and learn one day with shouts out to Isaiah Oliver, Headbang. Um, he talked about being like just being you and
Mm-hmm.
in all those kinds of different spaces. Like you ain't got to change how you talk or how you express yourself, but just be you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I am that 100% now. I am authentically me, and I can tell like it kind of bothers people sometimes because they're like, "Why do you feel so confident in you?" My confidence bothers people sometimes. Like this backwards hat, I wore this to a deal that a pitch deal like 2 weeks ago. I met with some people. They were like trying to buy some concepts. It was for my ad agency business, and I walked in there, and I mean, I dress up typically most of the time, anyways. Like I don't really have many down clothes. Like my streetwear is still casual, and I wore my hat. And most time that doesn't happen, but because I'm a creative and I'm a creative director, this is all a part of my brand. This is part of who I am.
Mm.
And I didn't go in there. And be honest, Henry, I kind of took that from you because you always wear hats. And I was
Mm.
like, how this dude get away with wearing hats all the time? And I'm still like shaving my head all the time. And like, so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to try this. And I'm just going to tell people this is who I am, accept it or I walk. And when I interviewed for my current job, that was one of the things that I was a non-negotiable. I said, listen, whether summertime or wintertime, I'm pretty much wearing a hat. I'm probably not going to wear dress shoes because I'm walking around and moving around. My chucks are my casual. And I made this pitch of you're hiring me, you're hiring my brand, you're hiring my identity, and I need to be comfortable in order to create what you want me to create.
Man, Mark, you about to get me fired up. When we talk about personal brand, like, not to get off subject, but just to like iterate this fact, right? Like, I think, and again, it goes with identity, right? Like, your brand, who you going with this whole idea of like being the authentic you in all spaces, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, that didn't start to happen until I got into my 30s because then
Yeah.
I got into the realization of like, again, like I said, like, this is who I am. I'm not going to change. I can only perfect the things that I'm great at, and I will use those as strengths to overcome whatever opportunities or weaknesses that I do have, right? But your brand and what you're portraying to people, whether it's business, whether it's personal, whatever, that should be the authentic you. And so
Yes.
when my last position at a company, I won't name the company, like I went like, this is like a very like enterprise level company, right? Like I go into there and I'm wearing my hat, uh and they tell me like, hey, look, part of our policy, our dress code policy is that nobody wears hats. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but I'm still coming to this interview in my hat. Like, this is me. This is the package. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
wanted me. Here I am. This is the package. And uh after I had got hired, I still wore my hat. And then like 2 weeks later, the recruiter told me that like they changed the dress code policy to suit my brand of me wearing a
Mm-hmm.
hat. And so like
Mm-hmm.
hats are now allowed in this big enterprise company. And so like I just say that to say that like we shouldn't dilute our brand or who we are to appease somebody else, right? And I think
Yeah.
if we again going back to this whole theory of like figuring out who you are, being selfish, figuring out who you are,
Mm-hmm.
then once you figure out who you are, you can be your best version of you,
Yeah.
which helps with some of the, and there's other like chemically imbalanced and things, science things that deal with depression. But
Yeah.
for me personally, me finding confidence in who I am has helped me alleviate uh those feelings of depression.
Yeah, I agree. Same here. Like me being able, as a writer, I feel like I need to be comfortable in my own skin when I'm creating. And that's when, if I'm trying to wear a suit to work, you're not going to get my full vulnerability when I'm trying to create something. Because anything that I write from the heart. And when I went through my divorce, that was literally one of the biggest things that I prayed for consistently. I asked God to um, only give me opportunities that would fit a purpose, that would cater to my purpose. I only want to write with purpose. I don't want to take jobs just to take them for money. I want to do something to further what I believe in. And so even when I write commercials, I write something to make you feel.
Mm,
There's emotion attached to it. There's some conviction. There's some type of morale that fulfills a purpose within me. And I'm going to make you smile and I'm going to make you laugh or I'm going to make you cry, but it's all emotion behind it.
mm,
And I can only do that when I'm comfortable.
mm-hmm,
And people legit buy into that because this is what I need. This is a non-negotiable. And you giving me that availability to be me, you're going to get the best of me if I can be me. And so and moving forward, that's all I've ever been. These last few years was just me unapologetically, like making people say my full first name. Like you can't say you want a little bit of urban flair or you want to have diversity, but you don't want to accept the urbanness of my diversity.
mm-hmm,
No, you're gonna get all this black.
mm.
That's real.
So you're gonna get all this culture.
So before we get too far over in there, I think that is a great topic. I think we should discuss like self-branding and marketing like at a different point in time, obviously. Uh but I want to do bring us back into the fold of like mental health and awareness, right? Um so my I guess my question to you what's your like let's say I came to you all and I said like, hey, I'm dealing with things. Like, what's your advice to me? I'm dealing with things. I don't know what to do. I think I'm depressed. What should I
Man
do?
up. No, I'm kidding.
Mm. Well, that's one of them things. It's a little too vague. It depends on the variables, what you're dealing with, and what's going on.
Talk to me.
I think first off, just because of me and you relationship, um, I will probably come down and be in your space.
Mm-hmm.
I will probably either get you in the safe space of your house and we just kick it, or get you outside of the house and we're gonna go do something.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go hoop, we're gonna take a walk, go for a run, whatever it is. But I think for us specifically, like us being in each other's presence has that ability to diffuse whatever we're feeling. And so showing up, right? That's what everybody needs. If when they put out that call for help, they need somebody to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And so showing up, and then I have that ability to dissect and dig and see what's the problem, and I'm gonna offer the best advice if that's what you want. Whether it's and that's the biggest thing, right? Is you got to determine if someone wants advice or if they just want somebody to listen.
Or if they just want you to, like you said, somebody just to be there, right? Like
Yeah.
the form of therapy that someone needs doesn't mean that it needs to be textbook. It needs to be
Mm-hmm.
you need to listen and give me advice. Sometimes, like you said, I just need my homeboy there or my brother there, right? I just need you
Mm-hmm.
there in the same space that I'm existing in and we just vibing.
Yeah.
Chris, what you
Yeah.
got, sir?
Yeah, man. I think, man, for me, it's really, I'm learning to ask good questions or be a better question asker.
That's a
And
big thing right there, is being able to ask. That's a lot of men's like biggest issue, is not having it, like they refuse to ask. So That's huge. But my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, man, just listening and again, just being able to ask questions because a lot of times we often have the answer within ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
but it really just takes some time to be able to really reflect on those and ask open, honest questions and try to listen and look for the lessons in those.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I would start. Yeah, yeah. How do you offer support?
Uh, I mean, I guess Mark, you hit it on the point, or hit it on the head when you said like it's a vague question. It is customized, right? It's customized to the variables. And I didn't think about that before I asked the question, but here we are. Uh, but no, honestly, I think like all the things that you all said, right? Like one, showing up, like I think that's important. Who is it? Royce to 5'9" has a song, check on your strong friends, right? Um, like that plays in my head a lot. Like I think about like even with us, right? Like there are some things that we have discussed here that I was not privy to. Because when we look at each other as the strong friends, right? Like we
Right.
don't like I didn't know that you guys were going through depression or contemplating other things, right? Like those are things that I just didn't know about. So just just checking in and hitting the group chat or having some sort
Right.
of line
Right.
of communication and be like, how y'all fellas doing? Like how we doing, right? Because sometimes that's all a person needs is how y'all doing to be like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and hook up with you and get me out of this funk, which is how we describe depression, right? Like, oh, I'm in a funk. So I think like for me that I think that showing up and like checking on our people, which I will honestly say I'm not the best at. So I need to get better at that. But yeah.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. I think we all could be better at that.
Right.
Just you know, um, people don't write letters no more, or notes, or postcards, or all, those kinds of things where it really just kind of takes you to take a little bit of time and be be really thoughtful in those moments. So I mean that's an approach too that we can all probably be better at.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think like even going with the whole idea of like the social media, right? Like I think it's easy to get distracted by the positive posts or people usually only post the good things or the great things that's happening. So, you and for a lot of us that
Oh
is
no,
our
man!
way of
It be them one moments, man. They got them the popcorn eating moments, man.
what's that?
The Facebook drama, man.
Oh yeah,
Um.
it'd be those moments. But
Yeah. I
in
just.
our group, right? Like we
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
post
yeah.
things when it's
I
like
feel it.
when it's we don't air our business like that, right? But
Yeah.
dang, I lost my thought. I was gonna say
My
something.
bad. My bad, man. I know it
But
was
no.
real profound. It was real profound. Go ahead.
No. But I get it though. Like I don't. I stay off social media in those moments, and I definitely try really hard not to compare, just because I have so many industry friends. I've been in the media industry since God, I was 19 when we started.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, I have friends that are like Emmy Award winners that have won like MTV Awards, BET Awards, like major accomplishments. And I'm like, man, had I not taken these few years off, I would have been here by now. Or had I
Mm-hmm.
not did this, I would have had this by now. Like, I know I'm more talented than this person, and so forth and so on. And so
It's
it's just
easy to
like,
do.
yeah, man, it's so easy to do and get lost in that. Or like, man, if I wouldn't have deleted my Twitter where I had 10,000 followers and started all over, and I can't even crack 1,000 out, like all of that stuff, used to eat me up or sometimes occasionally it does. I'm like, dang. But I had to recognize, understand, and appreciate my own journey.
Mhm.
And I had to have a certain level of self-awareness and acceptance. And because of that, like mentally, I'm a lot healthier. And I don't beat myself up, over that type of stuff.
As we shouldn't. Like we should never compare ourselves. Even like, within our group, right? Like I wouldn't say we would compare, but there's like friendly competition to motivate each other because we know our potential, right? As
Mm-hmm.
friends, right? But like people that you don't even know or associate with, or who are just like Facebook, Instagram friends, or whatever social media platform you're using, like there's no reason that you need to compare to their life again, because like the things that we post on social media, most times are only the positive things, the highlights of our life. No one, most people don't, post the depressing things, right? uh
Mm-hmm.
and going back to my point, what I was saying was, with that was like, right, like if that's what you guys are posting, then and if that is our way these days of like keeping in touch is through social media, then I could look at that and be like, oh, Mark good. Right, he posting pictures of, like, his kids are great, his job is good, like, right. And so to me, visually from just social media, if I'm not checking on you, it looks like you're good. But then I check on you, and then you can tell me behind the scenes, like, H man, I'm struggling with this. Like, yeah, I know this is happening. This appears this way, but really the reality is this is the reality, right? So that's why, again, like I say, it's important to like, you can't rely on social media to keep in touch with the people that you love. You should
Yeah.
definitely be checking on them.
Yeah. 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 You got to check on your people and you got to check on your mental health. And so we got to make sure we drop those links to any websites. We're going to drop some numbers down in the comments and in the description below as well for everybody who may be struggling or who could need some counsel, who could need some help or somebody to talk to. We do have numbers that are 24 hours, and we make sure we provide all of those for you as well.
Definitely.
And so I
Well,
appreciate
fellas,
the mental health check in with everybody. It was a great, deep conversation. I shed my thug tear that'll last
Man,
me
so
for this
good.
whole for at least 2 quarters. Uh,
So good. So good. Appreciate it, man.
yeah. So anybody got a dad moment of the week? I know mine was my son and him getting that number. His first,
Did he
I don't
get the
know.
number though?
Oh, he
Or
did get
is
the
he
number. He
got
can't
them
call her
digits?
though. He can't call her though. If my daughter can't talk to boys, he can't talk to girls. Yeah,
Right,
I
right.
gotta have some equality in the household. I can't be too biased. Even
Okay.
though I was proud.
as you should
That's
be.
what's up.
Yeah.
Henry, what's yours, man?
Uh, man, it is crazy. Like again, I said this already, but it's crazy to see Charlie crawling. Like, we were. I mean, I'm sure you guys went through this, right? Like, we're like, you're like, my baby not crawling, so you like try to get him, prop him up, and you try to move them through the mechanics, and like she was just not getting it. And then just one day by herself, it all makes sense that she out here crawling. Like it's wild to
Oh,
see this little bitty baby crawling, and now I got to worry about stuff that I didn't even think about previously. Like, man, she can get to that, she can get to this. So now I gotta do that. But that's a proud moment for me to just to see my daughter like starting to crawl.
that's what's up. Yeah, man. For me, it was that's my so I mentioned both two of my youngest. Their birthdays are later this month and early next month, and my oldest also finished kindergarten. So we're gonna do a little birthday slash graduation appreciation party in a couple weeks. And so I'm really looking forward to that. They've been talking about it. Like, she wanted this little drive-by thing and like super excited about it. So, man, it's real cool to just see them like kind of getting prepared for that. So, that's got me really pumped about it too.
You know what? I just noticed that all your kids' birthday are around the same time. What time of year is that y'all be getting busy, man?
And them is
It
personal questions.
Wait, I
was
know. Wait,
It
what
right.
doesn't
is
matter right now. I
what
get
is
busy
that?
anytime. No,
That's
It's
like
it's a
October,
certain.
November.
no, no. So my oldest man, her birthday is in February, and then I got two summer babies.
Mm.
So
Oh yeah, yeah. So it is that
you do the
October,
math.
November.
Yeah, yeah. It's that October, November. It's that Halloween.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
You're right.
I could tell you the exact moment.
Who birthday in October? That's that.
No, nobody birthday in October, but
Oh,
there's
we
a
in
couple
Michigan. It's Sweetest
exceptions.
Day.
Nah. So we went to a wedding, and man, she had on this dress. Yeah,
uh,
hey, got me. I had one right there.
I'm gonna put a baby in you tonight.
Right.
Man, actually, I think two of them were a result of us going to different weddings.
Uh-huh.
That's crazy.
It is. It's so wild. Now that I'm thinking about that.
I
Man,
was just bored.
if you don't, I was gonna say,
I was just
say it's
bored.
bored.
I was just bored, man. Nah,
Yeah, yeah. I know it's gonna be a lot of pandemic babies.
it
I don't
is
know
a
what they're gonna
lot.
call this generation. The COVID generation.
Right.
The COVID-19ers.
Right,
That's
right.
it. That might as well be their name.
Man, yeah, it's gonna be wild. The stretch of this next 3 to 4 or 5 years or whatever.
Right. Right. But yeah, fellas, we appreciate the podcast today.
I do have a couple jokes actually. I would
Oh, go
like.
ahead and hit us with the dad jokes.
Yeah, yeah. So check this one out. Check this one out.
All right, all right.
Why are elevator jokes so good? Any guesses? Well, they work on so many levels.
Mm, okay.
Yeah,
Decent. It's decent.
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
one more.
Okay.
Okay. All right. What's Forrest Gump's Facebook password? One, Forrest, one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's solid. That's a solid one.
Yeah, yeah.
Boom, boom.
And on that note, thank you
You're
for tuning
welcome.
in.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
see
been
you
a
next
great
time.
one. Next time.
Don't forget, you can always check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everything else that you listen to podcasts on.
That part.
Facebook as well.
At the Patriarch Podcast.
That's right. We'll holla.